We have a lot of topics to cover today, so I'll get to them very quickly here. This is going to include a very hyper-partisan Democrat Party corruption lawsuit with a big development recently, and also an overview of the Grit Freedom Rally in Olympia, and plenty more to talk about, so stay tuned. Thank you for watching. My name is Glen Morgan, and this is We the Govern. So as we mentioned early on in our intro, there's a lot going on right now, and we're really talking about this redistricting lawsuit that has been filed. I did a quick video on it last week, just about the fact that in Eastern Washington, apparently, a Hispanic voter that votes Republican is not really Hispanic. They only count if they vote Democrat. So this lawsuit has been proposed, and some big developments that occurred just recently. The Redistricting Commission chair just resigned on just recently, and she resigned because of a partisan divide on the commission, where the Democrats on the commission, in a split, two Democrats versus two Republicans, the Democrats decided they don't want to defend the map, so they just spent over a year putting together, it's something they do every 10 years, and it's been this big attention to the fact that the Redistricting Commission is this nonpartisan process with so many good elements to it, and it just takes all the drama out of redistricting. But that's wrong. It appears the Democrats are introducing as much drama as they can. And this lawsuit that was filed shortly after the redistricting process was over in January has really highlighted some of these issues. Now, if you remember, the two Democrats who are on the Redistricting Commission basically were taking orders from the Democratic Party, which is fine. The Republicans would do the same. And the problem was with this lawsuit, it basically claimed that a priority of the majority-minority district, which was created in the 15th legislative district, which is around Yakima, that it was mapped to be majority-minority. However, the problem with for the Democrats was that the 15th legislative district, even though it was still a majority Hispanic, after redistricting, it still trended Republican. And according to the Democrats, that a majority-minority district can't be legitimate, nor does it count if it trends to be Republican. So Hispanics who vote Republican don't really count. They only count when they vote for Democrats. So a new majority-minority district must be racist because it's actually Republican. And this is why this lawsuit was filed in January. We talked about in our last video on this, but we believe that it's essentially searching for a Sioux settlement agreement by naming only Democratic defenders. This really matters because the three Democrats that were named in the lawsuit, Steve Hobbs, Secretary of State, Lori Jenkins, the Speaker of the House, and Andy Billig, who's the majority leader in the Senate, all three of them are Democrats. And conveniently, the litigants just chose not to sue the Republicans. It'd be normal to sue all members of the caucuses, but the reason why they chose to only sue the Democrats is that the Democrats have said they're not going to defend the maps that were created by this nonpartisan redistricting commission. So, or I should say bipartisan redistricting commission. Well, the problem is then when the redistricting commission met recently to decide, hey, are we going to intervene and defend our maps? The Democrats said no way. The Republicans said yes. But it was 2-2, which means that they couldn't split the vote, and so it basically is ultimately the same thing as saying no, so it didn't happen. And so our concerns that we'd raised in that last video are very true. It looks like that's exactly what the Democrats are going to plan on doing in this case, is try to game the system because this majority-minority district didn't work out the way that they wanted to. How dare those Hispanic voters actually vote Republican? They need to try to see if they can gerrymander the district a little bit more to see if they can find different Hispanics that actually vote the way they want them to. It's absurd and ridiculous and racist on its face, but that's how the Democrat Party operates today, and that's what's going on, which is why this was so dramatic, because I don't believe this has happened before since we've had this nonpartisan redistricting commission where the chair actually resigns. So now with Sarah Augustine quitting like this in a very public way and very clearly blaming the Democrats for the fact that she was forced to do so and they were unwilling to defend the maps that have been created in a bipartisan sort of way, and the way that this actually undermines the whole process is doesn't appear to be of any concern to the Democrats. They're hoping for that one extra district, and I imagine that largely this is because there's been this obvious sense of an impending doom, to some extent, electoral doom that's coming down the road here with this big red red wave in Washington state. And so anything they can do to desperately grab onto a district that maybe even if they can game it, regardless of how questionably legal it might be, if they can just game it in some way to maybe get an extra House seat or so, it's going to be worth it. And that's basically the eternal quest for power that's going on in this case. So the Democrat Party is demonstrating once again what it believes, certainly not in the rule of law or anything else. And it's really just all about power and crushing all who dare resist. So that's what's going on right now with the Redistricting Commission. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen for sure in the courts, but the courts in Washington state, especially the judges, are really, they tend to be quite partisan themselves. They've all been appointed by Inslee or previous Democrat governors. So it's not like the Supreme Court is a great place to resolve anything. And if there's any wiggle room to do the wrong thing, this court pretty much always takes it. So we'll see how that goes. As much as it might destroy the bipartisan nature of the Redistricting Commission moving forward, it takes they only do it every 10 years, so maybe they're just hoping that everybody forgets when the next census time comes around, but we'll see. It's big drama, lots of interesting issues related to that. It's going to be really worth paying attention to it. Then I want to also give here a quick update for the Grit Freedom Festival rally that happened in Olympia recently. And I was there. I did a video about it in advance and was on the radio talking about this event. And some of you will probably remember some of the videos I've done just about the challenge of having rallies and how I think a lot of times they're a little bit more effective if you organize them around meeting other people and networking and not so much around speeches. It was a well-attended rally, not as high as the organizers had originally wanted. That looked to me like there were a couple thousand there, and I'll tell you, I base this on the fact that I've spoken at a lot of public events and get a pretty good sense of it. After all, the State Patrol said there were about 700 people there, but when I talked to the food vendors, the organizers, we were talking to the food vendors towards the end of the event, and they sold about 1,500 plates of food. And that's usually a pretty good indication there weren't 700 people there. I know I didn't get any food. Sorry for the guys that were selling it there. It smelled great. I just didn't get around to getting any myself. And I wasn't alone. A number of people didn't eat. So the 2,000 estimate, based on what I could see from the top of the stage, just looking out across the crowd down around the fountain, it's probably not totally out of line. There were a lot of rigs there. The big concern and the drama that the Democrats made that this was going to destroy the city of Olympia or end it, or there was going to be some huge drama, turned out to not be a significant factor. Of course, they were exaggerating a line, as seems to be the case most of the time. And instead, it just was a very peaceful opportunity to get together with a bunch of other people who share the same concerns about freedom and liberty from all around the state. And we had a few more speakers than I think originally planned. But in the end, it ended up being a pretty basic, good Freedom Festival. It wouldn't be a bad idea to maybe do something like this on an annual basis. But we did have face painting there. That's a pretty radical activity, very family friendly. There were a lot of kids that were there, and they were getting their faces painted as well. It was voter registration as well. Anybody who wasn't registered to vote was encouraged to do so. And if they lived in King County, maybe 3 or 4 times. And then also people had a lot of signs, as they always do at these events. And as I had promised before, I was handing out some of these not approved by Inslee's Ministry of COVID Compliance buttons to people whose signs I liked. I handed out quite a few of them. And if I didn't get to you and hand you one of the buttons, it was just because there were several people whose signs I saw from a distance, and I wanted to catch up to them. But the way the crowd was there and the way everybody was kind of stopping, it's easy to get distracted along the way. And then I couldn't find them again when I went to try to find you. So if you brought a really cool sign and you were hoping for one of those buttons and I didn't get to you to give you one, I'm sorry. That's probably my fault. I just got caught up in probably getting photos taken or talking to people as we were going through the crowd. There were a lot of new groups all around the lawn area, a lot of tents set up for people to sign up and join or get involved with new groups. There were also a lot of political candidates there, and there were a number of legislators and state senators who were kind of, especially some of the Republicans that were out there on the lawn because they were going in for some voting in the state capitol later on, about in the middle of this rally. So there were a number of people who were there. There was live music most of the time, and it really was a good event. I mean, the day ended up being really nice, very clear. If you've ever been to these rallies in the rain and a festival like this, it's much nicer when it's sunny. So for a nice day like this, a little March day with some sun, early March, that's nice. We don't always get that on the wet side of the state, so it made the event much more interesting. Just as a quick update too, we recently just did our first live stream video. If you didn't leave a comment on that video earlier, please leave a comment down below and let me know what you think about it. If you didn't see it and you're going to go back and look at it now, obviously the live stream itself's done, but at least it's recorded. And I'm just interested in your feedback. Let me know if you like it, you hate it, or what should be different about it. We're still making a decision if I'm going to do those on a regular basis, and I just want some feedback because we were doing this by popular demand in the first place, and I'm just interested in what your opinions are. The other thing I just would like some feedback on, if you could add it in the comment section below, is the legislative session's coming to an end. March 10th is the last day, and the reality is there was a lot of stupid bills that were proposed in the legislature this cycle. I know which ones I'm thinking about doing a video on, but I'd be curious to hear what your thoughts are. Let me know what they are down in the comment section below, whether they passed or they didn't. If a legislator was stupid enough to propose them and they were as ridiculous as many of these were, it is certainly worth calling them out and drawing some attention to that. So always interested in your feedback. If you want to learn more, please go to wethegovern.com. Don't forget to subscribe. Feel free to share this video with others. And I really do look forward to reading your comments, try to respond to as many of them as I possibly can. And like I always say, getting involved is the first step to actually taking back and taking control of your community. And you can't do it if you're sitting at home. You got to get out and engage, because the reality is the future belongs to those who show up.